Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Central Pennsylvania Shrimp Tank, brought to you from our temporary studio here in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm your host today, Nathan Imboden, and we have a great guest here who's going to talk about his experience as we continue on in our series in the Crosshairs of Corona. He's a returning guest, Alex Bazdar. If you didn't catch his previous episode, be sure to go to our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/CentralPA to check that out and to get access to all the interviews we get to do with all these amazing entrepreneurs. Also, be sure to like our Facebook page, go to your favorite podcast app, search for the Central PA Shrimp Tank. Click that like and subscribe button so you can get updates as we continue to do these messages. And we say all along, this podcast is meant to champion Central Pennsylvania-based businesses, both small and larger. And just want to tell the story of entrepreneurship. And right now, a lot of people see at least the perceived benefits of being an entrepreneur and being a small business owner, but don't sometimes get a real glimpse of the challenges and the heartaches and the struggles that a lot of us go through as we're building our business. So we're in a difficult time still, even though here in Pennsylvania, we have some restrictions being lifted. We're moving into yellow and green, whatever they mean today, but it's still presenting a challenge. And so we want to tell that message, and none better to be able to speak to that message right now than Alex Bazdar, who is the owner of Classic Rock, and they do just an amazing work providing the highest quality countertops and services around countertops to contractors mainly. And we talked about that again in their previous episode. Them shifting kind of the way how they do business was a real disruptor in the industry. But again, if you want to check all that out, go to our website, check it out. For now, let's bring Alex onto the show so he can share, again, his perspective on these last 2 months and moving forward. So Alex, welcome back, brother. It's good to have you.
Hey, listen, it's good to be back. I appreciate the opportunity. I always enjoy talking with you guys.
Yeah, same, brother. All right, so let's talk about, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's now starting to feel like it's so far in the past, right? March 16th, 18th, whatever date it was when we got the stay-at-home orders, which as I'm looking at my time and clock, it is about 2.5 months, hard to believe, since that happened. But backtrack to that, like just go back to you operating business as normal. Yeah, this coronavirus thing was out there, but we didn't really feel the burdens from it yet. And then boom, we get the order. Walk us through what you had to deal with in that moment. And then we'll talk about the kind of weeks leading up to being able to try to operate again.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those times in the history of what I'll look back on in my career and remember so vividly clear was the time leading up to March 20th, right? So March 20th was the last day. It was a Friday. It was the last day that we were officially allowed to be open, right? So 5 p.m. that day was when we were all supposed to close. And what was interesting was leading up to that was probably some of the hardest business environment that I've ever had to be a part of, because it was becoming known, right? Like you were starting to see it on the news. It was starting to become really well talked about, but we felt like we were a yo-yo, right? Because every day, every hour, our executive team is constantly discussing, what are we going to do, right? So we blaze a path forward, and it'd be an hour later and something else would change. Yeah. And it was this almost impossible task to try to keep up with. And, when we have about 100 employees. And so you had 100 different people that are asking questions. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Are we working tomorrow? I mean, this was going on for weeks. And so there was almost I know it sounds kind of odd, but it was almost a breath of fresh air when it was finally made official that we had to stop. Right. Because it was the first time where somebody was definitively saying, this is how it's got to be starting 5 p.m. tomorrow. Exactly. And it was almost like, okay, I can work with this now.
Yeah. Even if you don't like the news you're getting, you at least know what it is and can create some sort of path around that. Yeah. Yeah. So early on, were you guys considered an essential business? Did you go through the waiver process? Talk us through what that looked like for you.
Yeah, no, we were not considered an essential business. As everybody in Pennsylvania knows, construction was not considered an essential business, which regardless of what side of that you're on, I think it was upsetting because we operate in 7 states. In our own state, we weren't allowed to work, but we were still being almost demanded and called to in other states to complete projects.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And look, I have a theory on that myself. And, I thought that somebody needed to be the adult in the room and set up sort of an agenda for the country, but that's neither here nor there. Each state was allowed to make their own decisions, and it got very difficult very quickly. But at first, no, we were not an essential business. And so I remember about so on Thursday the 19th is when the news came down that we had to close. And I had gotten a message from somebody that I knew with a contact late, like 1:00 in the morning on Friday, about this email address that you could submit a waiver to. So I remember laying in bed at 1:00 in the morning doing this waiver process. And I think, honestly, it's the reason why we were able to get exemptions to complete the projects that we had, because we weren't able to get an exemption for our Pittsburgh facility, our production plant in Pittsburgh, because I didn't realize that you needed waivers for each location. So it kind of got odd that we got approved in Harrisburg, but not in Pittsburgh. And the reason I believe it was because I was a week late on the Pittsburgh one, because it took about a week to get that exemption.
Right.
But what we were able to complete was, you have to remember what we do is the last part of a kitchen or a bath remodel, right? And so without our product, you can't get occupancy, and you can't, say you're being ordered to shelter in place, but you don't have a kitchen. So,
right.
So we were able to get our exemption to complete those types of projects. And we did hold firm to those types of projects that we said, look, we're only doing what we called flight critical type of projects. There were some commercial projects that we had that were exempt, some hospitals, some new construction in some hospitals in the area here that we were able to focus on. And we were able to keep about a staff of 25 left. We left about 75. We had the furlough for the time being. We were able to keep a small staff together to work through those exemptions. And when I look back on that, that was the greatest thing that could have possibly happened to us personally, was that we were never forced to permanently shut down.
Yeah.
And what that allowed us to do when construction was considered essential again on May 8th was the opportunity for us to stay sharp during that downtime.
Yep.
We were able to keep all the heavy equipment operating and maintaining it so that we were able to really kind of hit that ground running.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't imagine if that stuff sits idle for a month and a half, and keeping people not operating that for a month and a half. I mean, we know how exercise and routines and what continue to help just get better, stay sharp, stay focused on what you're doing. So, all right. So you got to May 8th and were able to resume basically as normal. One of the challenges that most have faced in a lot of this was, all right, just because you can operate doesn't automatically, and this is one of the things I'm just still unsure of about, you move from red to yellow and yellow to green, and while the parameters of what you can do have changed, we're still relying on people following those or being willing to go out and do whatever, get back to normal, whatever that is. So what challenges did you run into as you were able to reopen, but you're dealing with maybe people that still aren't comfortable with moving forward with projects, or maybe even employees not comfortable coming back yet because of what's going on?
Well, it was interesting. Definitely not going to lie about that. Everything we do, 90% of what we do is in somebody's home, right? So there was a really big concern about, okay, so let's say that your employees are willing, okay? So you can get that part out of the way. But then our homeowner is going to be willing to open their door and let you come into their home. And
Right.
so, our first conversations were obviously with the team that we have here at Classic Rock was, do we have the manpower that we're going to need to complete the projects that we had in our pipeline? And I'll tell you, you'll learn a lot about people in a crisis that you never knew.
Mm-hmm.
The resolve of the team at Classic Rock was unbelievable. I knew we had a good group of coworkers at Classic Rock, but I was not expecting, quite honestly, what I saw the team here actually step up and do, and it was humbling, I
Yeah.
guess, in probably the best way to say it. It was really humbling. As an owner, we make a lot of risks and calculated risks, and we take a lot of decisions, and we have to decide what we're going to do, right? But
Yep.
you don't ever get to see it, I think, from that perspective. And when you have a team that not only was really willing to actually follow all the guidelines and not and look, I remember being an installer 20 years ago. Like, I remember being in those types of roles. And I got to say, I don't know if I would have handled it as well as our guys did in
Yeah.
reality. So they actually kind of showed me that they were better, and they were at the top of their game, and they were just really, really willing to do this. It was almost like a call to action to do this, and it was impressive, man. It really was. Everybody followed the orders. Everybody was rowing in the same direction. The guys appreciated the opportunity, but they also that felt special, that was still trying to survive in a world where everybody was so willing to say, I give up. What am I going to do? Like, everything's being controlled for me. But I'm a big believer in worrying about what we can control, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the team at Classic Rock, we wouldn't be where we're currently at today. So hats off to these guys and girls. They I don't know what else to say. It was a humbling experience.
That's fantastic, and that makes your day-to-day job, life, responsibilities probably that much either easier, but also more gratifying, because you see a team rallying around what's happening and embracing it. So what does the company look like today? You mentioned having a furlough number of people. Have you gotten back to a previous capacity? What is your are you at? Well, job-wise, do you still have a bunch that have fallen off? Are you somewhat operating like you were before?
Yeah. So I would say that we're operating as if we never closed, right? So I think we had 100 employees on March 20th.
Okay.
I think we're back to about 88 or 90 at this point. We've hired 5 new people in the last week and a half to 2 weeks. The only reason why we're not back to 100 is not because we don't want to be at 100. We need to be at 100, quite honestly. But we did lose a couple people during that transition. We knew that was going to happen. Honestly, I thought it was going to be way worse. I really thought that we were going to have to rebuild, and it was going to take us years. And again, it's just a testament to the team here, because they wanted to come back. And so I appreciate the executive team and the managers. They just really did a nice job pulling everybody together, having the right culture. And I can tell you that we're better and more efficient today than we were prior to this. So there's a lot of silver linings in kind of what has happened. It's shown me what we're actually capable of doing, which is
I've said from the beginning that going through situations like this, whether it's a pandemic, an economic crisis, whatever it is, it also presents an opportunity to just figure out how your business can pivot, how you can be more efficient. What this did was just forced people to figure out how do we adapt in this method. And a lot of what's happening is going to hopefully will continue on, because we're realizing there's a lot of stuff that we maybe were doing inefficiently that this exposed, and now is going to help us just be better as we get back to some of the things we were doing before, but using this to complement that and do well. So yeah, awesome. So what do you see ahead? I mean, yet now we're seeing, because you mentioned about the issues with Pittsburgh versus Harrisburg, different counties, different colors, different, all that garbage. But, what do you see ahead? What's your, as we now are starting to move a lot of, we have about half of our counties, I think, are either in or will be by Friday be in the green. Any thoughts from your perspective? Would you see it coming ahead?
I used to actually always pride myself on my ability to forecast for our business. It was like the one thing that I thought I had a really good grasp about markets and kind of where our business was going to fall. And this is, I will say, I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't think May was going to be as good as May was. I didn't think June was going to be as good as June's going to be. So I'm almost kind of being very cautiously optimistic. I think that we can't deny that if the market is a pie, right? Let's think of it as a pie, round pie. I don't think that anybody's going to say that the market or the pie itself might not get a little bit smaller. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big fan of, well, then we just need to eat more of that pie, right? So if we had this much of a sliver before of this pie, we need to make our sliver this much of this pie. And I think that we're going to do that. I do think the thing that we're very good at is creating the opportunities for our end users, which is our wholesale customers, helping them to grow their business. We've never asked for an order. We've always said, well, what can we do to help you be more successful? And I really think that we're not trying to learn that today. That's been our mantra for 14 years, was how do we improve the lives and the businesses of our businesses that we work with. And so, we're already into that model. And I think that is very helpful, right? And one of the things that we really talked about as a company during this crisis was, it's not about us. It's not just about us. It was about making sure that we could do everything we could to help save our customers' businesses too. And we viewed finishing the countertop or the surface in a project as the ability for our customers to be able to get that invoice in the mail, and be able to get paid and keep their businesses and their livelihoods going. And if we can focus on them, then good things will come to us. And so we're not going to change the way that we think. We think that, of course, there will be a little bit less demand. I don't think anybody's going to say it's not, but I think we're in a position to forge ahead, to actually grow. I still think that we'll grow. So I'm excited about that. Like I'm pretty optimistic, maybe to a fault sometimes, because maybe I might jump something with both feet, maybe a little bit too soon. But I've always been a big fan of failing forward. Right. So you never go backwards if you fall forward. So.
Yeah. Well, you spoke about that on our first interview with you, and that was a big part of your belief system, which I think is so true. Well, being able to get to know you here over the last year and a half or so, and interviewing you before and whatnot, I would agree 100%. Your attitude, your mindset is helping to position the company to grow and to capitalize on being able to move forward successfully. So I have zero doubts in what will happen with Classic Rock myself. But
hey, thank you. Vote of confidence.
So I like to end these on, there's a lot of positive stuff that's been going on with Classic Rock, and you've given a lot of that, but I also like to just see if there are any, I'll call them shout outs, any either other organizations, businesses, whatever it might be, that you feel like have also really shined or gone above and beyond or really helped businesses and individuals out over these last few months. So Do you have any in particular that you want to create any shout outs to?
Oh yeah, it's just kind of like when I win the award and I get to stand up there and
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, I mean, there really is. I mean, all jokes aside, I would first and foremost just say that if I didn't have the executive team that I have at Classic Rock, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. I can assure you of that.
Yeah.
They do the heavy lifting here. They are the ones that when we had to let 75 or 80 employees go, this group was the one that picked up the ball and ran with it. If they were wearing 10 hats before, they had to wear 50 hats.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that group, Tracy, Chuck, and Ryan and Rob and others, I mean, they just did an amazing job. So without them coaching and holding this team together, we wouldn't be here. Number two, I probably talked about this before, but joining organizations of others of like-minded or similar situations has been some of the best things that I have done. And I would give a shout out to Vistage. I think that being a part of Vistage and having essentially what has become like my board of directors, a group of like-minded men and women who share in experiences that are more storied than my experiences. I don't have 20, 30, 40 years of business experience. I mean, it's comical. I think I have like 10, it's like, it's, in the history of what I'm trying to surround myself with and these other individuals, I don't have a whole lot. I feel like I can sometimes offer back, but just being with that group, we were at one point, we were doing two multi-hour conference calls a week as a group during this crisis to just talk about, guys, what are you doing? What can we do here? What policies do we need to keep in place? What do we do about the mask wearing? It was unbelievable because you weren't stuck second guessing yourself.
Yeah,
you could
absolutely
say, listen, I might not agree with 100% what you're saying, but if 10 of you are saying it, I probably need to understand that my view on this is probably not right. And I'm going to go with the greater good and the consensus of this. And it's been wonderful. I mean, it's truly been a huge help.
Awesome. Well, that's early on in my career. And from a business standpoint, you and I are sharing, I would say, a similar years of experience level. But I early on recognized, I need to be surrounding myself with people who are either more successful than me, smarter than me, have more experience than me, and listen, because they've gone through things I haven't yet gone through that I may never go through, but I might go through something similar and they'll be able to help through that. And that's what a lot of those groups are all about.
Well, and I think it's funny too, because, it was 11 years ago or, 10, 11, 12 years ago that we had the Great Recession, right?
Yep.
But I mean, when I look back on that time in my life, I was like a kid, right? I mean, I wasn't like a kid, but I wasn't even married yet. So like my view of the world was so much different than my view just 10 or 11 years removed. Yeah. So when I looked at that group, everybody in that group remembers that recession. They remember it hard. They remember it as the greatest adversity that they've had to overcome in business. So I don't have a whole lot to kind of like draw back on that time because you're so young and naive and stupid that you're not supporting anybody in reality, so it just changes the way that I viewed that time in history, that I didn't have a whole lot to look back on that to help me through this crisis, which I would probably venture to say it's like nothing we've ever seen before. So can't draw a correlation per se from the Great Recession to this. This is a whole different animal. But that group and others, not just that group, but some of the other organizations Associated Builders and Contractors that we're a member of. They did some great stuff, some great webinars, and some daily information for us that I've pulled through to our company. Being in the construction industry, we were able to really relate a little bit more of that back. But just, boy, I tell you what, man, people really rose to the occasion here. They really,
Awesome.
really did. They showed a lot of willpower for sure, and a lot of creative thinking.
Well, for me, that's what's encouraging about looking ahead. I mean, as a country, you're right. This is different than other crises we've seen. The response has been different. What we've been forced to do has been different. But the one consistent theme that our country is always going through is we go through different crises, and they rear their heads in different ways, and they look a little bit different. But we tend to always come out better and stronger on the back end after we've been able to absorb it. And the fact that we do still see a lot of that creativity, we see people stepping up and just still being good people, thinking, forward thinking, whatnot, is encouraging about what will happen in the future.
Well, listen, if you can't learn from these types of crisis or issues in business, then you got to question your own business acumen at that point, right? Like, this is supposed to make you smarter, wiser. It's supposed to age you beyond your years. And if you're not using this time to gain those types of experiences, then you probably should be looking inward at changing maybe the way that you think about it.
Yeah.
This is the only way you can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that, man. So we're going to make sure to do some specific shout outs in all of our posts so that the people you want to recognize get recognized, because that's important as well, to make sure they get, credit and understand you've done a great job. You've gone above and beyond and done a great job. So thank you for mentioning those. And thanks again for coming on and sharing your experience. We're glad to hear that you're getting back to where you were before, and look forward to what's to come for you at Classic Rock. It's going to be good stuff.
Hey, thank you very much. It's exciting times ahead, right? It's exciting times. We're privileged and we're proud to be there. We really are.
Awesome, man. Well, again, everybody at home, go check out our website, shrimptankpodcast.com/CentralPA, to hear Alex's first interview. And it was really early on in our show. So we've even evolved as a podcast through this to make sure we can continue to bring relevant info. But what a great story that we got to dive into more of the background of how he got into business, how he got into Classic Rock, on all of that. So check that out on our website. Look, we're going to continue this series because it's important to hear from those individuals who are in the thick of it, understanding, learning. Like Alex said, if we're not figuring out how to learn to be better business owners through this time, then we got to question ourselves internally. So keep your heads high. Look at this as an opportunity to learn, to be better on the back end, and we're going to keep bringing this message to you. So for now, this is in the crosshairs of Corona. We'll see you on another episode next week. Thanks.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.